October 7th has come and gone, and Kawasaki has finally unveiled their new sports side-by-side, and it looks awesome. So we're gonna talk about that, as well as Kawasaki has done some really unique and interesting and just awesome things with this machine. Just little things that I don't think have been widely talked about yet. So we're gonna talk about that and all the other stuff, and I had too much caffeine coming up.
Welcome, riders. This is Navigate Off-Road, where it's all about helping you explore the unpaved with off-road information, destinations, and reviews. So today, we're looking at the new Kawasaki side-by-side. Let's go. Should we go ahead and we'll bring it in here? Let's go ahead and drop it in. Let's go ahead and drop it in. All right, go ahead and drop. Jeez. Hey, thanks for the heads up, bro. Appreciate that. So here it is. That was weird. Here it is, the new Kawasaki Teryx KRX 1000. Which for the rest of this video, we're just gonna call the Kawasaki KRX. I don't know why it's part of the Teryx line. It should be its own thing. It's different. It's awesome. I love it, but I don't wanna say that whole long name. And well, I wanna talk about the engine, but before I get to the engine, because I think there's something fishy going on with the engine that I wanna talk about. Before we get there, let's look at the outside of this thing, because it's definitely got an aggressive look to it. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the design. Like, I don't hate it. I don't know if I love it, but I definitely don't hate it. It looks really aggressive. It looks mean. I like that aspect. It almost looks too much like a car. And when I say that out loud, it sounds kind of stupid because, yeah, it's got 4 wheels, some seats, and a steering wheel. So it's inevitably going to look like a car. But just something about it, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But let's go kind of around the whole thing. We'll get a 360 of it. So when we look at the front end of this thing, again, like, it just has a sick, mean look to it that I absolutely love. The headlights on this thing, like the way they're set up, I love the style. It looks great. Speaking of these headlights, by the way, I definitely got a chuckle because when reviewing all the information and the marketing and media material and everything that I got on this thing, it states in there newly designed headlights. Like, yeah, I mean, the whole thing's newly designed, so why wouldn't the headlights be newly designed? Anyway, just kind of funny. And then when we look at the hood on this thing, we'll go ahead and turn it sideways so you can actually see the angle here that I'm talking about, but it angles down. Like, it specifically angles down to help the driver and the passenger get a better view from where they're sitting and just kind of see more of what's in front of them. Some side-by-sides, they come up a little higher. Maybe you never noticed that. I don't know. Maybe you're not vertically challenged like many of us. No short jokes in the comments below. And then, again, rotate to the front. When we look at the width on this thing, it's got a 68-inch width. So it's kind of sitting in that middle world for side-by-sides. Not quite up at that 72-inch level like a lot of the dune runners, and then not as narrow as the 64-inch model. So I'm impartial to that personally, but that's where it sits at 68 inches. So let's go ahead and turn it to the side and get a side view of this thing now. When we're looking at this thing from the side, there's a lot to take in, and a few things that I specifically want to talk about that I don't know if they've all been mentioned online yet. First, let's take a look at these doors. They're half doors, as you can see. They're not open at the bottom, and then they angle up. Let me push this out of the way and get over here, get a door in here. So it angles up. I don't even know if that's going to be where it shows up, but it angles up. And the reason they did that, close the bottom, angle it up, was to help prevent a lot of that mud from flinging in on you. Now you can see on the outside, there's a handle for opening it, and there's one on the inside. And this is one of the things they've done that I think is awesome. What they've done is they've added an armrest, a spot specifically for your arm inside the door, which is awesome. Something really unique that you don't see in a lot of side-by-sides. And when you get in there, you know, you're either trying to like put it on there or there's no door or whatever the case may be, but they've specifically added an armrest in the door, which is a freaking sweet feature to have. So another awesome thing that I think Kawasaki has done with this when they're thinking of the riders, and I'm gonna try and explain this the best I can because I can't think of the right words. This is like the 5th take on this, is they've narrowed the front. So if I'm sitting in the driver's seat, they've kind of narrowed the front end and this tire sticks out a little bit. So I have a clear, as the driver, I can look out and I can clearly see the tire, right? And that's great for when you're on those technical areas, so you can be riding and have the ability to just very easily like look out and see the tire, see what's around the tire, and tackle the obstacle that way. Super awesome feature. So while we're on the tires, I also want to mention, if we go ahead and slam it down here again, the approach angle on this thing. So if you'll notice on the front, the tires stick out further than anything else. It is the same on the back. So this has a 90-degree approach angle, which is awesome, meaning you could quite literally butt this thing right up against a rock and theoretically start to climb over it, right? Now, obviously, if you start adding things like bumpers and all that, that's gonna change. But as it sits right now, it's got a 90-degree approach angle on the front and back, which is awesome. Now, as we look at the tires themselves, these are gonna be 31-inch Maxxis Carnivore tires held on by 15-inch beadlock rims, which not only looks good, but anytime someone's gonna give you beadlock rims is okay in my mind. Now, these tires are held on by double wishbone control arms with Fox Podium 2.5 LSC shocks in the front, which is gonna give it 19 inches of travel. When we move around to the back, it's gonna have a 4-link trailing arm suspension with the same Fox Podium 2.5 LSC shocks, giving the rear tires 21 inches of travel. Now, this is where I get a little confused because Kawasaki claims that this is class leading, the 19 inches in the front and the 21 inches in the rear. However, if we were to look at the Polaris RZR XP Pro that was released not too long ago, the 2020, that's got 20 inches in the front and 22 inches in the back. So I don't know why Kawasaki would make those claims. It's probably an error on my part, but I would think the RZR Pro and the Kawasaki KRX would be in the same class. So if I'm wrong, or if you know how I'm wrong and what the class separation is there that I'm missing, do me a favor and leave that in the comments down below. Now, I didn't mention on this is the ground clearance. So it's got 14.4 inches of ground clearance. And then lastly, before we move to the back, I gotta say the last thing on here I wanna point out is this snorkeled air intake. That's pretty freaking awesome. I know some of you are gonna snorkel it even higher, but the fact that it's snorkeled at all is a big win. And I can only imagine when you start to tear into this, it's gonna make it that much easier to snorkel if you do in fact wanna go higher. All right, let's move to the back. So when we look at the back of this thing, again, it looks aggressive, it looks mean. I definitely like that aspect of the design. So as you can see, it's got a pretty big cargo box back here. It's got a 350-pound capacity, and by the way, it can hold a 32-inch tire, so the tires that it comes with, you can get another 5th one in there, throw it back there, you're good. There's also a lot of accessories. I think they're already up to like 50 accessories from this thing, right from Kawasaki. So they've got tire mounts and all sorts of different stuff if you still want to access the cargo box and then mount the tire. That's an option as well. But one thing they've done, again, this is another cool, unique thing that I think is awesome. Again, they're thinking of the riders, is the cargo bed is recessed. So not only do you have your normal space, but they've recessed it even more on the inside to allow for things like coolers to fit down in there, and you're not worried about them sliding all around. So you can really just get that cooler in there deep. You know what I mean? Just get it down in there nice and deep. So that is awesome. Now, let's talk about the engine, because we really haven't talked too much about the engine. This thing is rocking a 999cc twin parallel 4-stroke engine with a CVT centrifugal, you know how many times? Centrifugal. It's getting worse. It's getting worse every time. Now, why is that important to you? It's important because Kawasaki claims that you don't get a lot of that initial jerk. It's gonna get rid of that. So when you hit the gas, when you hit that throttle, it's just gonna go. If you used a lot of CVTs before, which is your continuously variable transmission, it's a belt system, and a lot of times when that belt grabs with a lot of machines, you'll get some jerk. Depending on the rider, depending on the machine, you'll have more or less of it. But with this system, Kawasaki is claiming that you're basically not going to have any of that, even if you're not the greatest rider. They're hoping to have eliminated that altogether, which is awesome. Now, here's where it gets really weird. Kawasaki has not listed the horsepower rating for this thing at all. Like, when was the last time you saw a new machine come out and they just ignored the horsepower, like just not talked about, which I think is super odd. But the guys over at UTV Action Magazine found some paperwork that Kawasaki submitted to like the California Clean Air, I don't know, some, EPA deal or whatever in California they got going on, that shows that it has 84 kilowatts of power. Now, they did a conversion over at UTV Action Magazine, which thank you for putting that info online. And they showed it's gonna have approximately 112 horsepower. So that's really what we're looking at as far as horsepower goes. I hope that's accurate. Again, if everything adds up and all the numbers were done right, it's sitting at 112 horsepower, which is gonna put it slightly over the Talon, which is kind of its comparable model, right? At least it appears to be. And that's what I keep seeing people online comparing it to. So it's got a little more horsepower than the Talon. However, here's my thought or question, whatever to you, something to consider is the Kawasaki has a CVT transmission, whereas Honda's Talon has the DCT, which theoretically is going to lose less horsepower by the time it gets to the wheels. So does it really at the wheels have less horsepower than the Kawasaki? Something to think about. Let's move inside this bad boy. All right, real quick, because I forgot, this video is sponsored by, well, it's sponsored by Navigate Off-Road. Head over to navigateoffroad.com/store. I'll put a link down below to check out some of the cool shirts and designs and different stuff we have over there. Just so you know, though, it is not just t-shirts with our name and logo on them. It's other stuff. So head over there, check it out. We've already started throwing hoodies and long sleeve shirts on there as we head into winter. All right, let's get back to it. So as we step into the inside of this thing, we'll skip the armrest because we already talked about that. Those are freaking awesome. Just when you take it all in, it's plain. It's really plain, and that's fine, right? That's fine. But it does have, again, it's got that car vibe to it. And I think I figured it out. I think I know why. This looks a lot like my Toyota. I used to have a Toyota Corolla when I was younger. Just, an old basic car. It was fine vehicle, just very plain. Looked a lot like this. But there are some awesome features packed into this thing that we got to talk about. First up is the steering wheel. It's got a tilt steering wheel, but it doesn't just have like those 3 adjusters. It's a stepless steering wheel. So you just get it set wherever you want and you lock it in. And what's cool about this is the dash is actually attached to the steering wheel. So as you move the steering wheel up and down, the dash is actually going to move with it, which is a pretty cool feature. And speaking of this dash, it looks good. Like the dash itself actually almost doesn't fit the rest of the inside of this thing because it looks like a really nice dash. And if you look down on the bottom of that, you'll notice it has a CVT temperature gauge, which is awesome. The fact that they're including that belt temperature right there on your gauge, Kawasaki, like huge fan of that. Awesome job. So as we start to move around in the inside here, you're gonna notice right off the bat, there is tons of storage in this. Kawasaki has really just done what they can to add as much storage as possible. There's storage above the dash. There's this huge thing in the middle for storage. There's a glove box with storage. Now, speaking of the glove box, again, this is another really cool feature that I think Kawasaki's been thinking about the riders, is the T-handle, the grab bar that passengers and side-by-sides often have to hold on to. It's kind of in/right above the glove box, if you will, and it's retractable, and you can push it really far in there. So if you want it out of the way, you can push it in and get it out of the way, or you can pull it out and have it there for your passenger to hold on to if you want. Again, just it's the small things, right? It's the small things, and I feel like Kawasaki for this TRX, they've done a lot of little small things for the rider that just overall provides a great ride. Now, as we continue to look around the inside on this thing, you might notice that it has 5 cup holders, 4 in the center console, so 2 of them on the front end of the center console and 2 in the back by the seats, and then 1 in the passenger door. Now, I've seen people make comments on, why do you need 5 cup holders for 2 people? And I'm over here like, I finally have somewhere to put all these energy drinks without stopping and getting out and hitting up the cooler. Now, when we look at the seats on this thing, I think they look a lot like a Polaris RZR, but they do look bigger, which is great. A little wider and just looks like you fit in there a little bit more. And they do slide back and forth, by the way. Now, you're going to be stuck with the generic seatbelts unless you want to pay extra. So no 4 or 5 point harnesses on that, which is unfortunate, but pretty normal. Nothing too shocking there. I will say it does appear to be pretty roomy on the inside. So what are your thoughts on this machine? Does it seem like a good machine to you? I know we're just learning about it now, but would you consider it? Are you intrigued by it? Do you think it's worth the price, which we haven't talked about, by the way? It has an MSRP of $20,499 US and $26,999 Canadian. Personally, I think it's too early to tell. I'm intrigued enough that I really want to test drive one of these. I think that would really help answer some questions and just get a good feel for the machine, like a real solid test ride. I definitely think that it's got a unique design. It looks very durable, by the way. It seems like a very beefy, very durable machine with that mean look. I still get a little bit of that car vibe from it personally, but that is what it is. I will say, I think it is awesome. Super freaking awesome to see Kawasaki step outside their comfort zone and make this machine. I think that's great. Hopefully it's a good sign for things to come. Maybe we'll even see some updates on the brute force sometime in the future, which would be awesome. So I hope this at least gave you some basic info on the TRX. By the way, click this up here to see other videos on our 2020 ATV and side-by-side lineup. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope to see you on the trail.